Hello and welcome to this video on how you can wire and train your bonsai with less risk of breaking branches. Breaking branches is almost a universal truth with bonsai. Sometimes it's caused by bad luck, other times it's a trait of the bonsai species, such as having a particularly brittle branch structure. Fuchsias, for example, are prone to this. What is perhaps the most common cause is wiring. Wiring branches involves twisting a strand of metal around an irregularly shaped cylinder. There are many hindrances when doing this. Without a deft hand, the wire will snag, pull, or be difficult to form as needed. When this happens, it can apply force in a way that causes the branch to snap. Obviously, not a good thing. If instead you have managed to wire your branch and are trying to style the tree, you can also go too far. This leads to that most unpleasant, creaking, cracking, popping sound that everyone learns to know and fear. It is the sound of a branch breaking and likely beyond any recovery. The best way to avoid this is to wire your branch very carefully and use that wire the right way. For this, let's assume that your branch is wired perfectly. That is roughly 45 degrees, no overlapping wire, no kinks, and so on. With it wired, you can now use that wire to bend branches without that terrible snapping sound. The way it works is surprisingly simple. The wire is seen here. It is on the branch in a spiral. When you want to bend the branch, you do not push the branch itself. Instead, apply pressure here and here. This wire will bend and the branch will follow. Unlike bending the branch where force is applied in a very direct manner, this is a somewhat more gentle and less direct approach. It is similar to how a vehicle has suspension that slows down and absorbs the force and then slowly releases it when you hit something suddenly. In this case, by applying force to the wire, you create force along its length. This applies force to the whole branch, and notably the point where you want it to bend, but not in a single location along that bend. If the branch tries to bend back to its original shape, it's resisted along the entire length of the curve. That resistance is spread out over a very big area, relatively to how you would do so if you were trying to force it directly. It starts from a point away from the center of the turn, both before and after. That is a much more gentle way than the force of directly bending. This can be seen here. The force of pushing a branch is applied in this way. That is just here. The force then needs to be distributed away from the bending location, and that creates two problems. One is that the transfer of force is not efficient, and so the risk of breaking is great. You've applied too much force, it can't be moved, and so you exceed the tolerance of the branch. Snap. There is also how the force enters this part. It is a direct line from your hand into a cylinder, and you have more pressure here on the side where you're applying force and less on the other. That makes it more likely to snap. Another benefit of bending wire is how it can make the branch twist. As you bend the wire to apply it, that will also start to bend the branch, and it will be twisted around slightly. This is a result of how you are applying that wire to the branch. Force is applied this way here. That happens to pull on the wire, and it causes some tension. That tension causes the branch to be twisted by that 45-degree angle of the wrapped wire. This is helpful in many ways. The branch itself loses some of that linearity, which means any force applied to it is no longer traveling in a straight line. Rather, it takes a more circuitous route, and so again we have more area that needs to compensate or can compensate for that force. Think of it this way with these wires. The wires are all held in a linear way, and when you pull on the two ends, they all flex. Instead, when you take the two ends and you start to twist them, You get a little bit of tensioning and twisting, but then they become rigid and strong. The same thing happens here. While we don't necessarily want the rigidity, being an organic thing, a bonsai that is living, it will retain some of that necessary flexibility, but it also has some extra strength from tensioning now. While nothing is going to stop branches from breaking, as sometimes luck just does not favour you, doing this and bending using the wire rather than forcing the branch, it will reduce the chances of bad luck striking and ruining what is possibly years of work, patience and care in mere moments. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it interesting, consider liking, sharing and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions or suggestions you have below.